Good morning, students. Today we are going to start our third lesson in EVS, Animal Shelters. Now children, where do we live? Of course, we live in houses. And why do we need houses? We need houses to protect ourselves from the gusty winds, scorching sun, heavy rains, and all the discomfort these things cause us. Children, we also need house to protect ourselves from wild animals. Some people live close to forests. They have to face the danger of wild animals. A house also protects us from wild animals. A house protects us from thieves and robbers. Now, as we need a house to live and protect ourselves from sun, rain, wind, wild animals, so also animals need shelters. They also need a house. Now what is a shelter? Shelter is a new term for y'all. What is the meaning of shelter? A shelter is a safe place where one is protected from danger. A place where one is protected from the sun, rain, wind, etc. Now children, as we build for ourselves houses, so also animals also build houses for themselves. Some animals find shelter in safe places in the environment, but some animals build shelters for themselves. Like the birds, you have seen many birds' nests. Nests are shelters that birds build themselves. Birds are afraid of animals that eat eggs, so they need a safe place to lay their eggs. Baby birds come out of the eggs. There are animals that eat these young birds. The young birds are too weak to protect themselves. The nest keeps these young ones safe. That is why birds build nest. They use grass, straw and twigs to build the nest. They may even use cotton, wool and pieces of thread and string. This makes the nest soft and warm inside. But children, all nests of birds are not the same. Some birds choose a safe place to build nest, like the weaver bird. It chooses a thorny tree which has thorns. The tree has thorns so that animals cannot reach the nest of the bird. And these trees have branches hanging over the water. So the weaver bird builds nest on the highest place, on the highest branch of this tree, and lays eggs in the nest so that animals can't reach their nest. Animals will find it difficult to reach this nest. One more bird is known as a tailor bird. This tailor bird is smaller than a sparrow that we see in our surrounding. This tailor bird selects a plant with big leaves and builds its nest by stitching the leaves together. That's why the name is given tailor bird. It stitches the leaves together. It uses a fine tendril. Tendril is just like a root, and it uses the tendril to stitch the leaves together. This little nest is big enough for the little tailor bird. Some insects also build their own shelters. Insects are very tiny animals, very small animals. These small creatures also build their own home, own house. For example, the honeybee. The honeybee builds their honeycombs on trees or under the roof of an overhanging cliff or hill. Honeybees are very busy workers and very hard workers. They build honeycombs for themselves. Rats and mice, they live underground in fields, but they too have to dig into the soil and make holes and burrows to live in. Rats and mice also live in areas where we live. We We live in a house, they can make holes in our house too. They make holes in the walls or under the floors in houses, but they mostly take shelter in mud houses, which is easy for them to dig, and they build the burrows and holes, but it is difficult for them to dig the houses which are built with cement. That is because they cannot dig holes into cement construction. Mud houses are made up of mud, so it is easy for them to dig holes in mud houses. So they live in mud houses or under the floors in houses. Some animals find ready shelters in the surrounding, in the environment. Now, which are these animals that find ready homes for themselves? They do not take any effort to build a shelter. They don't build a house for themselves. They just simply go around for a safe place. Now, these are some birds like the pigeons, doves. They live in forest and they live in small hollows in high hills. Some live near our houses also. We see many pigeons in our surrounding. So they find shelter in gaps in walls. Now tigers, leopards, hyenas, lions, they live in caves. They do not build house for themselves. Their house is ready. Their shelter is ready. They find a place which is built with stones, and this shelter is known as a cave. Now some types of bats live in tall trees, but some live in dark caverns in mountains, or they look for shelter in old, deserted, tumble down buildings where people are not staying. People do not live over there. So some bats live in these caverns or old deserted tumble down buildings where people are not living. Now, do you all know, children, a cobra lives in an ant hill, but that is not true. Ant hills are built by ants, not by a cobra. The cobra, a poisonous snake. It lives in holes. Now shelters for domestic animals, the animals which we tame, which we keep. So for these animals, we build shelters for them. Now which are these animals that we tame? We tame the cow, buffalo, horse, hens, cat, dogs. For these animals, we build shelters for them. Now the shelter built for hens is called a hen house or a chicken coop. Now farmers, they keep cows, buffaloes, so they build cow shed for cows. Horses live in stable, so this shelter is also made by we human beings. The shelter for a horse is called a stable. Now what we have learnt in this lesson, animals need a shelter to protect themselves from the cold, wind, sun and rain, just as we need a house to protect ourselves from the sun, rain, wind, robbers, thieves. So also animals need a shelter to protect themselves. Some animals build their own shelters. Some animals look for ready shelters in the surrounding. And some animals which we tame, which we keep, we build shelters for the animals we keep. Always remember, children, is it right to keep animals in cages for our pleasure? No, let them live in their natural surroundings.